The 4-6 Chicago Bears are ready to turn their season around as they get ready to take on one of the best teams in the NFC North, and that's the Minnesota Vikings on the Lake Park on Sunday. We'll give you a special preview coming up next. In basketball, the Chicago Bulls are 0-2 this week. Can they bounce back in tonight's game against the Atlanta Hawks at home in the NBA Cup? We'll give you our predictions. The White Sox are finally throwing a party for their fans. Yay! We'll give you the details with our girl, Miss Christine Manika, and our weekly NFL picks with her as well. That and a whole lot more. So hashtag Football Friday starts right now, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Welcome to another fun-filled hashtag Football Friday edition of Second City Sports. You're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sidney Brown. You know that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CKID. Once again, it's CKID. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We're located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. PODCASTS. I got it correct. We are located on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion due to our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio show, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll, indoor, or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full powers to give you fools the bill and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you, whether you're watching us live or you're watching us on the replay, you can always hit us up in the comment section. Let us know what you think. And you know, after all this time, anytime, anywhere, you know we will provide. So support us.
Yes, we will, right?
Support us, support us, please.
Yes, tell your friends about us, and of course, Sports on Chicago as well. Now, we got a great show lined up, well, as we always do, but we really do have one great one here for you guys. After this break, we'll have KSTP-TV's Alec Ausmus, that's the ABC affiliate in the Twin Cities. We'll preview again more of Vikings, Bears, and the rest of the Twin Cities sports scene. Very busy time of year for the folks up there in Minnesota. We'll talk to him about all of that. Plus our girl Christine Manika, KXRB, with our NFL Week 12 picks and so much more. Of course, we'll talk to you stuff about Sox Fest coming up, a little college football, a little NBA as the Bulls try to bounce back. They're 0-2 right now in the Emirates NBA Cup. We'll talk about that in a little bit, Sid. But first, let's get to our previews of Bears and Vikings. It's kind of interesting, sort of. We thought that maybe with everything that's with the Bears and all that's been going on the last few weeks, and facing Minnesota team, this is going to be their third. We'll talk to Alec about this in a few minutes here, but this is their third straight road games, their fourth in their last 5. Some people are wondering, will they be tired? I've been hearing that all week from our pundits here in Chicago. Can the Bears? They're opening for the Bears. No, Sam Darnold's a little bit banged up with that foot injury, and I know they lost Christian Darrisaw, who was one of their top alignment for the year a few weeks ago. So there could be an opening for the Bears there. Do you agree, Sid?
There could be an opening for the Bears to be competitive in this game, which I think they will be, and here's why. The rush offense for the Minnesota Vikings, which is ranked number 21 in the NFL. I know Cam Akers, that backup running back, scored his touchdown last week in an ugly win over the Titans. But the Vikings have not particularly run the ball very well, especially in these last few weeks, as you mentioned. Sam Darnold, he played well last week against Tennessee, but he's been struggling the past few weeks after starting off the year 5-0. He's really come back down to earth. But for the Bears, one of the few things they did well last week was they ran the football. Give credit to new Bears offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. What can Brown do for you for that? That's what he could do. What he can do is bring some simplicity to that Bears offense. They had a perfect balance of run and pass, and I'm looking forward to see what this Bears offense can do, because that Vikings run defense is not good. But the one thing that the Vikings defense can do, Lakina, we'll talk about with our guests, as you mentioned, coming up in the next break, they can blitz the hell out of you. And Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores, he's one of the best in the business at doing that. How can Caleb Williams handle that pressure? And if that's the case, which we know it is, will Cole Kmet see more targets? He started to see a little bit more attention last week against Green Bay. I think you should see a whole lot more attention this week with the pressure and the blitzes he should be expected from his Vikings front seven.
Listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. Ken McGee, Cindy Brown with you. And incidentally, though, that Viking events we talk about, and we've been saying this for like all season long. I mean, they're not. I wouldn't say they're not opportunistic, but they are. They will blitz. Look, we know Flores will blitz the hell out of you. So you still got you're dealing with some guys that Harrison Smith, of course, Shaq Griffin, Ryan Murphy Jr. I mean, those are sort of like the kind of guys that will make big plays for you when they need to. So that Minnesota defense, yes, they're not. Yes, the run defense isn't the best, but everything else is sort of like they're just right. So we will just see how Caleb responds to all that, because that Flores is going to have his guys blitz a lot this game. So I'm wondering, but then if you go by a blitz, you die by the blitz. Don't forget Stephon Gilmore is there too. So he might be pressure on a lot of, on that O-line. Now, Tevin Jenkins, he did practice yesterday. That could help the Bears a little bit, but the fact that he's been banged up and everything else, I mean, that's going to be the key for the Bears. Like, how will the Bears offense respond to that Minnesota defense? Because they're going to be blitzing hard.
Yeah. Taking a look at the numbers from both these teams through the rankings in the National Football League. On offense, the Bears are ranked third from last at number 30, Vikings number 18. Total defense, Vikings number 6, the Bears stand at 12th. In passing, the Bears are second from dead last in the league, number 31. The Vikings rank 18th. And in rushing, which we talked about here briefly, the Vikings number 21, the Bears are number 22 in running the football. Lakina, especially with Andrew Billings being gone for the year for the Bears, and Montez Sweat, he's been double, triple teamed all year, and he's dealing with an injured shin. You would think for the Minnesota Vikings, and like I said, they haven't been impressive in doing this over the last few weeks, but you would think they would run the football a little bit more against this injured Bears defensive line. And for Sam Darnold, you would think that Justin Jefferson will get more involved in this Vikings offense. He had a decent game last week against the Titans, but with that injured Bears secondary with Jaquan Brisker being on IR, we talked about that last week, you would think that Sam Darnold, given the right matchup, he's going to take a couple of shots downfield with Justin Jefferson, assuming that Jalen Johnson is going to cover him for the majority of the game.
Well, that could leave the door for maybe Jordan Addison too. He's been very solid all year as well. So I'm sure Jefferson's going to get a lot of attention from Johnson, but I think Addison might benefit from that if you're Minnesota. And we all know Aaron Jones loves playing the Bears, so I'm sure he sees that injured front seven in the middle there. Now Montez can only do so much, so I wonder if Aaron Jones is going to he hasn't had his breakout game yet since joining the Vikings, so this could be his breakout game today, especially taking advantage of that run defense for the Bears, because we know that run defense is not, even though they've been banged up, it's not where it's supposed to be. So if you're Aaron Jones, you want to try to take advantage of that too. Yeah.
And also, too, let's not forget about their stud tight end. I'm talking about for the Vikings, T.J. Hockenson, the former Detroit Lion. He was acquired via trade a couple years ago. He's been very helpful in that Vikings offense. And for that Bears linebacking core, I'm talking about Jack Sanborn, T.J. Edwards, Jack Sanborn, and I forget Tremaine Edmonds. Thank you, Tremaine Edmonds. They're going to have a tough challenge on their hands. As you mentioned, if the Vikings get off the bus running and they're successful at it early, look for T.J. Hockenson to get open in the middle of the field, and that's where the Bears linebackers had to come in and close in their gaps and not let TJ Hawkinson bust loose.
Now back to the offense for a second for the Bears. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how, like I said a couple of minutes ago, how Caleb responds to that pressure, because he's not going to be, he hasn't really had to deal with that. So you got to think Flores is going to be coming for him, and I think try to take advantage of that injured O line, the different pockets and stuff like that. So that blitz now that could spell trouble for them too if he was able to get the ball quick and get it to guys like Komet and Allen and DJ. But at the same time though, they could look, you guys like Harrison Smith are gonna be coming at you pretty quick. So we saw what happened in that Packers game. That's the one thing that the Packers defense did do well, was because they were able to pressure Caleb as much as they could. So he's not gonna be able to get away with that what he did last week against the Packers with this week against Minnesota, because they will make it pay if they catch him off guard.
And the one thing we had to look at here for the Chicago Bears, that they were third from the bottom in the NFL as far as using motion on offense with their wide receivers and tight ends. We saw a little bit of that last week against the Packers, but we haven't seen that from the Bears all season long. In my opinion, put Cole Kmet in motion a little bit. Also, you could do that with DJ Moore. They started to do that last week. You saw DJ Moore start to have success with that toward the end of that game. You could use Romaduza in motion too. Confuse the Vikings a little bit as far as fooling that defense, because like we said, Brian Flores is going to come at Caleb with the blitz. Can Caleb pick up the blitz in time to give it to Cole Kmet, or Romaduza, as we said before the season started, they could have a special connection, and we've seen that play out. Can the Bears use their receivers in motion enough to throw that Vikings defense coverage off? That's the thing that I'll be looking for on Sunday.
Now it's gonna be interesting, like you said, Sid. I mean, you saw we've seen Matt Eberflus usually. He sounds defeated. If you talk to, we know a lot of folks who cover the Bears and have been inside. So you wonder, have the team basically quit. Now you saw last week against the Packers, you thought that, okay, maybe they haven't, but you're going to be facing a Vikings team that, feels like they still have a shot, unless, Detroit completely falls off, of winning that divisions and, getting one of those playoff spots. So they got a lot to play for. Minnesota does too. So it's going to be interesting to see how both these teams, especially the Bears, if they can respond. Now, can they build off that great momentum that they got, keeping it close with the Vikings, or are we going to get the same old from the last few weeks? That's going to be the key here.
And let's not forget, this is the Bears' last home game in about a month, because they go on the road next Thursday on Thanksgiving Day against Detroit Lions. They get a nice 10-day break after that. Then they go to San Francisco, and I believe after that they come home against the Detroit Lions. So, for the Bears, you lost your last two games in ugly fashion at home, and you want to reestablish dominance. I'm using this in air quotes as you can. You want to reestablish dominance at Soldier Field. You're 4-6. If you met Eberflus with the rest of that coaching staff, you have to be smart, but it may be a point in time in the game you have to take some chances. Let's see if the Bears if they're presented with that situation. Let's see if they can do that.
We'll have more Vikings Bears discussion with our new buddy Alec Ausmus from KSTP-TV in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and of course we'll talk about the rest of the Minnesota sports scene. It'll very busy time up there in Minnesota with their sports. So we'll talk to him about that and a whole lot more coming up. Bikini McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. More Vikings Bears coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports with the hashtag Football Friday edition. You're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keita McGee on the Twitter, executors again, IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio show. If you have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest coming up, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Look in and we'll get the up on the screen for you.
We got our new friend joining us, Sid, and of course, one of the things we love about this show is that we get to, of course, you guys know some of the people that that we've had on the show multiple times, but one of the better things about it is that we get to check out some new friends, some cool people from around the area, from around the various areas, especially when we face when the Bears face these teams this year. And of course, we got one right now. He's a sports reporter for KSTP-TV, which is the ABC affiliate in the Twin Cities. A lot going on up in the Twin Cities this time of year, so we're gonna go talk about that right now. Mr. Alec Ausmus. Alec, how are you?
Hey, how are you guys? Thanks for having me. It's kind of a gloomy, gray day up here in the Twin Cities. I think I saw Chicago got some snow yesterday, so you guys can keep the snow.
It's that time of year. Look, I love the upper Midwest, Alec. So let's get right to it now. Sid and I were talking about this before you came on with us, and this is the third straight road game for the Vikings, 4 of their last 5. A lot of the folks here have been saying that could that help the Bears a little bit. So what's the mood like with the Vikings? This is their third straight road game.
Mood is pretty good. Was in the locker room yesterday, and these guys are very upbeat. Coming off a Jacksonville win and a win at Tennessee last week, that Jacksonville game was 12-7. Vikings didn't score a touchdown. Found a way to win that game. Last week in Tennessee against the Titans, bounce back game for the offense. Found the end zone a few times. Defense played well, came away with a 23-13 win. Mood is good right now with the Vikings. However, talking to some of them yesterday, they aren't looking past this Bears team. I mean, they know that this Bears team very easily could be 6-4, maybe even 7-3. So mood's good, though. Overall, everything's good with the Vikings, but they are not looking past this Bears team. But if you look, the Vikings haven't lost at Chicago since 2019. Some close games, but there's guys on this Vikings team, the Harrison Smiths of the world, the veteran guys on this Vikings team. They know how to win in Chicago. They've done it a handful of times, and we talked about that yesterday. But overall, they're ready for whatever the weather elements might be. And they know that this Bears team is a lot better than maybe they look record-wise on paper.
You have one of the best defensive coordinators in the National Football League named Brian Flores. He's turned that Vikings defense around over the past couple of years. What's his game plan as he tries to defend this Bears offense coming up on Sunday?
Well, Brian Flores, it's hard to know if he's a candidate to be a head coach again coming up after the season he's had with this Vikings defense. I hope he gets those opportunities, but that's a whole nother can of worms. And Brian Flores is great, good to be around. And what he was saying this week is they know Caleb Williams can run. They know Caleb Williams is incredibly athletic, so they obviously need to contain Caleb Williams. The Vikings are one of the best defenses, though, stopping the run. So I know the Bears with DeAndre Swift, it's kind of been bang or bust a little bit with DeAndre Swift. I don't know if the Bears run game is going to have a ton of success on Sunday against the Vikings. However, the Vikings defense has given up some pretty big passing efforts. Even last week at Tennessee, Will Levis had a 98-yard touchdown completion. Things just broke down in the Vikings secondary, and that big play happened. 2 possessions later, the Titans did it again, but it was called back on a penalty. So I know up front it's stop the run, it's contain Caleb Williams. I'm sure that's what every team defensively wants to do, but Caleb Williams is a freak athlete. I mean, the future's bright for Caleb. I know some people in Chicago might be fearing that it's another Justin Fields kind of situation with Caleb Williams, but he's athletic. The Vikings know he's athletic. The Vikings are really good up front. They're good at stopping the run, and hopefully they can contain Caleb Williams. A big thing on the Vikings defense is Danielle Hunter, defensive end. He left. He went to the Houston Texans. He got a huge payday. The Vikings took that money and got 3 linebackers, Blake Cashman, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Jonathan Grenard. Those 3 players for the same price as one Danielle Hunter have been incredibly productive for the Vikings defense this season. Blake Cashman missed some time with a turf toe injury. He's been back the last 2 games, and right now this Vikings defense seems to be clicking on all cylinders. So I think the Bears offensively are going to have their hands full with this Vikings defense and some of the schemes that Brian Flores has been able to cook up this season. Several of the younger quarterbacks that the Vikings have gone against, for example, Brock Purdy, after losing to the Vikings, I think in week 2, talked about how crazy those schemes on defense were that he was seeing across from him that Brian Flores was cooking up. So the Vikings have done well this season against younger quarterbacks. Their only 2 losses have been to Matthew Stafford and the Rams, and then Jared Goff and that crazy Detroit Lions offense. So younger quarterbacks have struggled against the Vikings defense this season.
Let's go back to the offense for a second, Alec. And Aaron Jones, of course, from his years with Green Bay, he loves playing. I'm sure he loves playing the Bears. He's kind of had his struggles a little bit. He's been banged up here and there. What do you think? This Bears, the run defense for the Bears isn't very good. So, what do you think of his chances of having this, his first breakout game of the season?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones, first of all, anyone in the NFC North would watch him play well for the Packers, and you see his personality. I mean, it was really fun. It's been really fun to have that personality here in the Twin Cities, here with the Vikings. I mean, Aaron Jones is just a fun guy, but as you said, he really hasn't had that breakout game. I mean, there is some wear and tear issues with Aaron Jones. The Vikings don't necessarily want Aaron Jones to have 25 carries a game. His body just can't keep up with that. Where Aaron Jones has been a game changer for the Vikings is his pass catching ability. He's been that consistent check down pass for Sam Darnold, which isn't rushing yards, but it's kind of that same productive stat on offense. Aaron Jones has been very good at that. They traded for Cam Akers. The Vikings traded for Cam Akers for the 2nd season in a row, which is kind of strange, but Cam Akers is right now that backup running back. And between the 2 of them, you kind of get anywhere from 70 to 90 rushing yards. It's not huge production. I'm not going to sit here and say the Vikings have this amazing running offense. They don't, but Aaron Jones has been the best option the Vikings have had since Dalvin Cook a few years ago. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question mark as to what could happen on Sunday with Aaron Jones and what he does against the Bears defense up front there. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But Aaron Jones has been a pleasant, fresh breath of air here in the Vikings locker room, his personality and his production. He always seems to be banged up. He's had some rib injuries lately that he plays through. He tells us, the media, that he's fine. He's going to be out there, but you can just see him wincing on the field sometimes. So I know he's banged up, but he'll play on Sunday, but he can't do 20 to 25 carries a game. His body can't hold up anymore.
We're hanging out with our new buddy, Mr. Alec Ausmus from ABC5. He's a sports anchor reporter from Minneapolis, hanging out here with us right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you on the hashtag Football Friday. Staying with that Vikings offense, Alec, we talk about Justin Jefferson perhaps being the number one wide receiver in the National Football League, but talk about his teammate Jordan Addison. He's been really his complimentary, his Batman to his Robin over the last couple of years. Talk to us about Jordan Addison. He's really been very productive.
Yeah, Jordan Addison, coming in as a young player, when the Vikings drafted him, the intention was for Jordan Addison, as you said, to be that consistent number 2 piece to Justin Jefferson. As we all know, Jefferson has been drawing a lot of double coverage, and Jalen Johnson for the Bears, I imagine, is going to be attached to Justin Jefferson's hip on Sunday. Jordan Addison has been that productive secondary piece. Now, where Jordan Addison gets in trouble is off the field. He's had some incidences where gets in trouble speeding, or he had an incident out in California before the season where he got in trouble getting pulled over and he was under the influence and things. So Jordan Addison's trouble has been more so off the field, but this season he's been productive. And you got to remember, the Vikings add TJ Hawkinson at tight end, so it's kind of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson are the main 3 receivers. But Addison had a nice touchdown catch against the Titans last week. His production is going up. The more Justin Jefferson draws a double coverage, Jordan Addison seems to be getting open more. And I would say more consistently, he just catches the ball. Jordan Addison's not a huge receiver. He's only about 6 foot, 6'1". Got decent speed. He's not going to blow you away with his speed, but he's got decent speed. But he just seems to catch everything, and that's something that Justin Jefferson does as well. I know they wear those really sticky gloves now, but those guys just catch everything. And Jordan Addison has been very consistent for Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold's got some great weapons. If you look at the Vikings in offense in general, I mean, Sam Darnold, that you would say is their only potentially weak spot. I mean, they have a decent offensive line. They have an okay running game with Aaron Jones, and then Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson. I mean, you have all these pieces on offense, and unfortunately, in a weird way, it seems like Sam Darnold is potentially that weak spot on the Vikings offense. But right now, things have been working. They don't always score a ton of points, but they usually seem to get a lead, and then they hang on for dear life, the Vikings. They'll get out to like a 2-touchdown lead, and then just kind of it's a chess game after that, and they hang on for dear life. But, 10 games in, they have 8 wins, so the Vikings will take it.
Well, you just answered my question about Sam Darnold, so I'll ask you about Kevin O'Connell. On the flip side, though, with Eberflus, of course, our coach here is very bad at one-score games, and I think you just mentioned it. Kevin O'Connell actually has the best record in the last couple of years when it comes to one-score games. So, what do you think his chances are for Coach of the Year? I think a lot of people did not expect Minnesota to be this good. I think we thought they may be this decent, but not great. So, what do you think about his chances for Coach of the Year?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, so I think here's the thing: the NFC North, right? It's pretty stacked. I mean, right now as it stands, the Lions, Packers, Vikings probably make the playoffs unless they all fold. And who knows? Maybe the Bears can even make things interesting down the stretch. But I think for Kevin O'Connell to be Coach of the Year, the Vikings have to almost beat Detroit later in the regular season. That's the last game of the regular season for the Vikings. Beat Detroit. And then you got to win some playoff games. I mean, the Vikings, Kirk Cousins, as we all remember, he's an afterthought already with this Vikings team. But they never really made any deep playoff runs with Captain Kirk. I mean, they beat the Saints one year to make it to the divisional round, but there just hasn't been a lot of playoff wins. Now, that being said, everybody here is very pleased with Kevin O'Connell. He's a great young coach, a great offensive mind. He tried to be a quarterback in the NFL. That didn't work out, but he gets the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it seems like in the league right now, that's what teams want. They want that young offensive-minded coach, and Kevin O'Connell is definitely that. And I would love to see what Caleb Williams could do with a coach like Kevin O'Connell. If the Browns, for example, were to move off of Kevin Stefanski, I'm on the outside watching in, but I just would love to see the Bears maybe make a move like an offensive coach like a Kevin Stefanski and really see what they could develop with Caleb Williams. But Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. We like him here. He's good with the media. He's good with his team. The players respect him. He has control of his locker room. I mean, it's checking all those boxes. It's just a matter of what can Sam Darnold do for that team this year, because rookie J.J. McCarthy is certainly in the wings and will be the Vikings quarterback of the future. And this might be a one and done for Sam Darnold here in Minnesota, but right now he and Kevin O'Connell are on the same page. They have a good relationship. And I don't know if a lot of people know that the Vikings quarterback coach is Josh McCown. I mean, that guy played for 10, 12 different NFL teams. And he even interviewed, I think, to be a head coach in Houston. He didn't get it, but I just mean he's highly regarded as an upcoming coach in the NFL, and he's working with Sam Darnold and McCarthy on a daily basis. So there's a good thing going. The Vikings each week you don't really expect the Vikings to get out-coached. They might lose. They might get outplayed. They might lose, turnovers, something might happen, but it's not really boiling down to the Vikings getting out-coached between O'Connell and it was what Sydney was saying earlier with our defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, as well.
Going back to the Vikings defense, you talked about some of the names up front earlier, but the one area that people don't talk about is their secondary. Me and Lakina talked about before we brought you on, in particular, Stephon Gilmore, Harrison Smith, and Byron Murphy Jr. Talk to us about the Vikings secondary and what impact do you think they can have on this game against the Bears on Sunday?
It's a two-sided thing. It's on one hand, those guys are they've had great careers in the NFL, but on the other side, they're kind of old, right? Like they're kind of on the back end of their careers. I mean, Harrison Smith is a legend here for the Vikings. He's been here. This is his 13th season in the league. All 13 of them have been with the Minnesota Vikings. But I mean, he had another interception last week in Tennessee. He's still productive. He's maybe lost a step or two, but yeah, Harrison Smith, Stephon Gilmore, Shaq Griffin is part of that group, and then you have some younger guys like Cam Bynum and who else am I missing? Oh, Byron Murphy Jr. He had a couple of interceptions in a row, so he's been productive. I mean, there's guys, right? Like there's guys in this Vikings secondary, but I'm going to say that's a weak spot, sort of, for the Vikings defense. They're really strong up front, but their pass defense, it's average. It's not bottom of the league by any means, but that is a spot where the Bears could attack. I mean, I know Keenan Allen and DJ Moore have been visibly frustrated on the field at times this season, but those two could be a problem for the Vikings on Sunday. I'm expecting a lot of quick passes to DJ and Keenan, maybe on slants, and just get them going upfield a little bit. And that could be a problem for the Vikings. I mean, as I said, in Tennessee last week, they gave up a 98-yard touchdown pass, and then 2 possessions later, they gave up another deep pass that came back off penalties. So, I mean, it's possible. It's not a bad secondary. The Vikings pass defense isn't bottom of the league by any means, but I would say that is certainly a weak spot. And a team like the Bears, if they do have a big game offensively, it could be through the passing game, no doubt.
Now, this is a busy time of year for you guys up there in Minnesota. So we'll talk about some of the other sports here. We'll start with the T-Wolves. I mean, they lost a tough one a couple of days ago to Toronto. They're 8-7. Of course, Julius Randle. They traded Cat, for Julius Randle. And how is Randle and meshing so far? And can the T-Wolves get back into the Western Conference Finals?
At the moment, what are we, 13, 14 games into the season, this Timberwolves team does not even look close to that Western Conference Finals team they had a year ago, which is odd. I mean, they basically have the exact same team minus Karl Anthony Towns and adding Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Something seems off with this Timberwolves team. They aren't meshing like they were last year. I don't know if that's a locker room issue that's translating out to the court, but even watching them lose to Toronto, a very young Toronto team last night, and a team that had 3 wins. I mean, this Timberwolves team they didn't score. They didn't play well in the fourth quarter. And, to see that happening for a team that was in the Western Conference Finals a year ago is a little troubling. It's a long season. I mean, you'll hear Minnesota fans say that all the next 3 months. It's a long season. A lot could change, but it hasn't been a hot start right out of the gate. And that is a little concerning. I mean, Anthony Edwards is blossoming into the superstar of the team and one of them of the league. And he's getting his points, right? Like Anthony Edwards is still playing like he does, but it's not consistent. Rudy Gobert as a center hasn't been consistent. Julius Randle is having moments. He hit a game-winning three-pointer against the Suns the other night, but other than that, it hasn't been consistent play either. So I would sense there's some frustration over there right now. They've been on the road for a few games, so I haven't been over to Timberwolves practice in about a week. Every time I am there, though, it does seem upbeat. But right now, I'm a little concerned. They just don't seem to have the flow that they had last year. But I know Denver isn't quite as good, it looks like, but the Western Conference is pretty good right now. I mean, I know in the East, though, Cleveland, they're 16-1. So there's still some teams to keep eyes on, absolutely. But the Timberwolves, it's an uphill climb right now, it seems like.
Speaking of the Timberwolves, talk about your head coach, Chris Finch. Of course, last year he started to get some love nationally, and rightfully so, when you mentioned with the Timberwolves losing to Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. It seems like his players, at least as of last year, really played hard for him, and he has really one of the best basketball IQs as far as head coaches in the game. Talk to us about your dealings with him over the last couple of years.
Chris Finch is great. And speaking of when we were talking about Kevin O'Connell, I mean, Chris Finch is right in that category as well as being a coach that could be a coach of the year in the NBA. And all the players, when we talk to them, none of them have ever said that Chris Finch doesn't have command of his locker room and of his team. And I know his players really respect him. He's great. Chris Finch he did a great job in the playoffs last year, making certain decisions along the way, especially when they beat Denver in Game 7 of right before the finals and stuff. So he's developing as a head coach as well. He's not a young head coach by any means, but he's developing, and the Timberwolves are riding high with Chris Finch. But I would say though that I don't know what he thinks necessarily is going on right now with that team, because we ask him all the time what he thinks of the camaraderie on the team, and he tells us one thing, but then when we watch, it seems like something else is going on. But he's all right. Everything's good right now. The Timberwolves, the panic needle by no means is striking red or anything, but Chris Finch is kind of right there in that Kevin O'Connell category as far as coaches around here that I don't see leaving anytime soon.
Well, let's switch gears and talk about the Minnesota Wild. They're second place right behind Winnipeg in the NHL. Sid and I talked about, we talk about hockey a lot here, and the Wild, can they kind of be like right there in that contender for the Western Conference?
Yeah, and when I was growing up and getting into college and stuff, the Wild could not get past the Chicago Blackhawks in the playoffs. There's always this, I don't know if it's a rivalry by any means, but here in the Twin Cities, we still are bitter about that. We had some good Wild teams 10 years ago, and unfortunately, the Blackhawks just had that dynasty of Stanley Cups and just great players. So whenever I think of the Wild and Chicago, whenever they play each other, I just remember some of those tough series. But the Wild are always on the cusp of making the playoffs. And a couple years ago, I always thought if a team in Minnesota was going to win a championship of the major, NBA, NFL, NHL kind of thing, it was going to be the Wild winning a Stanley Cup. They always just seem to have these young guys, but then when they get to the playoffs, something funky happens and they just can't quite get it done. But right now, this year, they're off to a great start. And a lot of it's interesting is a lot of these wins have been coming on the road. Some of their losses have been at home. I mean, but on the road, they have like 12 wins now, or 11 or 12 wins. I know they just won in Montreal last night, and they'll be at Calgary, I think, this weekend before they come back home for a few games. So winning on the road never hurts, but it's a young team. There's some up-and-coming superstars. Kirill Kaprizov is the big name that I would say anyone that's an NHL fan should keep an eye on with the Minnesota Wild. And then they have a younger guy, Matt Boldy, is an up-and-coming superstar as well. And then those guys are being productive, and most importantly, they're healthy. I mean, that's in any sport. You got to have your superstars on the field or on the ice, on the court. And right now the Wild have their superstars playing. And And one of their goalies is Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer, and three years with the Wild, but he, those years in Pittsburgh when he was hoisting Stanley Cups, and so they have a very veteran guy that's been there, done that, has won at the highest level. That's been some glue that holds that locker room together is Marc-Andre Fleury. So they have pieces. You can't get your hopes up with any team in the Twin Cities. It seems like, they'll have good regular seasons and then it all comes crashing down in the playoffs. But the Wild right now, if the Timberwolves are struggling, it's always nice to have across town in St. Paul, you have a hockey team that's playing well just to help balance things out. But overall, there's some winning going on in the Twin Cities, and that never hurts.
Last moment or two with Alec Ausmus from ABC5 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He's hanging out here with us on Second City Sports on Chicago City. Lakina kicking it with you. Alec, still this next question from my co-host. She's a big college football supporter. She's a guru. She watches it way more than I do. But you guys had PJ Fleck. I remember him playing in Northern Illinois back some 20 years ago. Of course, now he's the head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers. They're 6-4 right now. They kind of had an up and down season. Ugly loss at UCLA, but they beat the Fighting Illini a few weeks ago in Champaign. Tomorrow, you guys host Penn State. Do you give those guys a chance, or will there be a footnote in Penn State's march to the college football playoff?
So love PJ Fleck. I mean, the guy, the attitude over there is great. The players are echoing that they're bought in, right? I mean, that's what you want with a college team, the players to buy in. And they've had an up and down season. They opened up against a North Carolina team that they should have beat. That was a tough home loss. But just when you kind of write this Gophers team off, they'll come back with a nice win of some kind. Now, Penn State this week, I don't know what I don't even look what the over under is or what I'm sure Penn State's favored by probably at least 10. I don't know. The Gophers offense, right? They're riding a quarterback, Max Brosmer, who transferred in from New Hampshire. He was a top FCS level quarterback a year ago, and now he's here and he's been playing fine, but it just seems like this Gophers offense can't get it done when it really matters the most. And that's happened a few times this season. I'm going to go with Penn State. I don't know if there's any Minnesota fans tuning into this, but I'm going to go with Penn State. They just seem much more well-rounded of a team, and they are playing for some seeding right now in that college football playoff. The Gophers are kind of just happy they're finally bowl eligible. I mean, last year they got into a bowl at 5-7 because they had a good GPA and it got them in. I mean, this year they have 6 wins right now, so they're in. And in a weird way, it seems like they're okay with that. They're satisfied with that. I say the Penn State wins this weekend, but then the Gophers will finish next weekend in Madison against the Badgers, and that's a toss-up. And they play for Paul Bunyan's Axe, that traveling trophy. So I think the Gophers probably lose to Penn State this week, but then maybe can bounce back and end on a win against Wisconsin next week to be 7-6, 7-5, somewhere in there, going into bowl play. So there's nothing but upward climb right now for that Gophers football team, and NIL is a huge part of the whole college football landscape. And right now with the Gophers, it's not bad, but it could be much better. They're struggling a little bit. They're falling behind in the NIL world, and it's unfortunately that's a huge part of the game now. I mean, that's how some of these major programs like Penn State and Ohio State. I mean, I saw a rumor that quarterback that Michigan just signed that cost millions of dollars to get that top recruit. That's crazy. I mean, we're talking pro sports now. It seems like with these college players, but it's ever changing, no doubt.
Well, he was actually originally committed to LSU. They were able to flip him. So I'm sure Brian Kelly's probably like ripping his hair out right now when he saw that news yesterday. It's probably not very happy.
Yeah,
it is. Last question from me, Alec, and the Twins. They just missed against the playoffs by just a couple of games. With winter meetings coming up in a couple of weeks. So do you see Minnesota making any kind of moves?
Man, the wheels literally fell off in September for the Twins. At the end of August, if the season ended right then, they would have been a playoff team. They would have been a wild card team, and the wheels fell off in September. Oddly enough, right now for the Twins, the current family that owns them here in the Twin Cities, the Polad family, the Twins are up for sale right now. They plopped that for sale sign out in the yard, hypothetically speaking, and because of that, I don't see the Twins making many big splashes in the offseason pool, because if the team's for sale, maybe clearly the Pohlad family might not want to be investing a ton of money. I mean, the Twins right now have a good enough team to make the playoffs potentially. I mean, you do have Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, some of these younger guys. Royce Lewis is coming up, and Brooks Lee was an up-and-coming prospect that has now been getting a taste of the big league. So they have some guys. They don't have a ton of pitching right now, but the AL Central, in my opinion, isn't that strong. I know Cleveland had a pretty good year this last year, and they made it, I think, to the ALCS, if I remember right. Yeah, they lost to the Yankees. Mm-hmm. So Cleveland's always a heavy hitter, but Kansas City, they could come back pretty strong. But the White Sox are obviously historic for the wrong reasons right now. But the Twins are for sale, and that's more or less kind of the interesting moment or interesting future of what's to come for that franchise being for sale, and are the Pohlads actually going to sell that team? But no, I don't see a lot of big splashes this offseason. If they do go make a move, it's got to be for some pitching, whether that's the bullpen or a starting pitcher. But that's a lot of teams. I mean, there's every team out there seems to need another starting pitcher, and I imagine there's some other teams that will have that payroll to go make a big splash right now. So we'll wait and see. Spring training, warmer weather, and spring training is never that far away. I think that mid-February when that stuff starts to happen, that'll be here before you know it, and we'll be getting some sunshine and talking some baseball.
Yeah. A quick follow-up, Alec, if I may, for the next minute or two. Of course, you talk about the payroll, and Carlos Correa is rumored to be traded. It started for the last couple of days, but you guys had a relationship. I'm talking about the Twins had a relationship with Bally Sports, now FanDuel Sports. That's no longer. Now the games will be produced by Major League Baseball. And of course, I know you guys had trouble out there. Many fans couldn't see their games last year due to contract disputes with certain cable companies. What's the temperature of the Minnesota Twins fan right now?
Well, and that same channel, the now FanDuel Sports Network, also televises the Timberwolves and the Wild here in Minnesota in the Twin Cities Greater Metro. So it was frustrating, very frustrating. I mean, even as a sports anchor reporter, like there's times I had to go to work and log into some of our accounts to watch a game because it's just impossible to see. And there's money involved, right? Like there's money involved in those TV deals. And a team like the Twins that isn't a huge baseball marketed team. I mean, they told us that impacted the payroll, but it seems like there's some progress. There's some plans in place. I don't know if it's what Major League Baseball is exactly going to do yet. I went to a broadcasting college in Minnesota, and I have many former classmates that work on those broadcasts, the Twins broadcast and the Timberwolves and Wild broadcast. And a lot of those guys, when I talk to them, they don't even know if they're going to have a job in 6 months. So there's a ton of uncertainty with that. It's an uneasy feeling in the Twin Cities right now because the fan base here on all those sports is huge. People want to watch. There's been even talk of trying to get some of those games just on local TV, some of the local TV affiliates here in town. But there's a lot of money involved. I mean, it's expensive. It's millions of dollars. I mean, TV rights to professional sports games. I mean, look at the NFL. I think Fox pays billions of dollars for some of those TV rights. I mean, it's absolutely insane what it's grown into and what it costs now. And but because we have several teams all on one network here in the Twin Cities, I would imagine there's some incentive for somebody to get this figured out because there's plenty of eyeballs that want to watch, and there's a platform for it. But I think Major League Baseball is already trending towards having their own streaming service because they already, with MLB Network, a lot of them already had cameras in place at some of these stadiums where they could take a live look. So, I mean, the infrastructure's in place for Major League Baseball for them to do their own thing. NBA and NHL, completely different story. It's not that simple. But baseball started making these moves years ago. And right now they could televise on an Apple TV. I mean, there is a platform for them to already have some of the infrastructure in place. So that wouldn't surprise me either if some of this FanDuel Bally Sports stuff collapses and just disappears completely.
Well, you Minnesota folks, we love you guys love your sports. So I can't imagine. Well, we're actually going through it right now here with CHSN here in Chicago. That's a whole different conversation. But yeah, thanks again, Alex. This was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. We're definitely going to have you back on. Where people can find you on ABC5 and on social media and all that other great stuff.
Yeah, my Twitter handle's kind of weird. It's A_twice KSTP. But yeah, post a lot of stuff on there, post some videos on TikTok. But thank you guys for having me. My fiance is from Chicago, so I come to Chicago often. I love that city, great people. So thanks for having me. This was a pleasure.
All right, yeah, we're definitely gonna have you back on. So,
all right, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, take care.
That was Alec. All right. That was Alec Ausmus from ABC5 in the Twin Cities. We got a big, a lot of, hour number 1 in the books, hour number 2 coming up here on Second City Sports. On Sports of Chicago, the King McGee Brown with you. Our girl Christine Manika from KXRB will be joining us in a little bit for which our NFL Week 10 pick'ems and some other stuff that going on as well. But next, Bulls, can they finally get a win in Emerald's NBA Cup play? We'll talk about. We'll see about that, and also too, of course, the rest of the NBA, and also too a little college football as they're finishing up their season in the next couple of weeks. The Key to Be East, Brown, Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. More fun on hour 2 coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Hashtag Football Friday, the edition of Second City Sports. You're live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. Lakina McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
As we entering hour number 2 of this fabulous program, we're going to get into the Chicago Bulls, the NBA, and preview some of the big matchups in college football for this coming weekend. If you have any questions or comments on those subjects, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments to the comment section. Look in and we'll get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Monday's game for the Bulls. I mean, it kind of happened the opposite of what we thought was going to happen, Sid. We thought that maybe the Pistons would be the one that will kind of, shoot a lot of threes. And, of course, they beat the Bulls. Turned out that was the opposite. The Bulls shot a lot of threes, and they actually beat the Pistons by 10. Now, unfortunately, they on the NBA Cup side of it, they are now over. Giannis had 40 as the Bucks beat the Bulls by 16. So they get to try to get their first win tonight against Atlanta at home. It'll be their first home game of this. So we'll get to see the nice little court there that they have all the cool, like the red, little pops of red at the UC. So I get to see that for the first time, of course. It's on CHSN, so I won't be able to watch it. But yes, what do you think the chances are for the Bulls in this game against Trae Young and the Hawks?
Well, they beat the Atlanta Hawks a week or two ago in Atlanta on a Saturday night. And as we said before, we previewed that game. Trae Young usually has his best moments against the Chicago Bulls. He struggled in that game. We'll see what kind of defensive plan that the Bulls head coach Bill Donovan will have for him tonight. But as far as the 2 games this week, I have to correct myself. The Bulls were not 0 for 2 this week. They were 1 for 1, as you mentioned. They beat the Detroit Pistons this past Monday by 10 before losing to Milwaukee. On Wednesday, I heard a stat earlier this morning in prepping for this show. We talked about the Bulls are going to win consistently. They're going to have to shoot a ridiculous percentage from 3-point range, above 45% to even be in the conversation and win the majority of these games. So far this year, Lakina, the Bulls are shooting 31% from 3 at home at the UC, but above 40% on the road. Let me repeat that one more again, as the kids would say. The Bulls are shooting 40% from 3 on the road, but only 31% from 3 at home. And the Bulls clearly have a better road record than they do at the UC. So what does that tell you?
Go figure with that one. So
right.
Maybe with the court, I guess, maybe that'll the court, maybe kind of the look of the court, maybe I'll have a different look and feel of it, I guess. So hopefully the Bulls can get it going tonight, because they're over an NBA Cup so far. They don't want to be too far heavy lagging from behind these next couple of weeks during this. So we'll see what happens tonight. Now we'll go into the games here from yesterday. We'll just do like a few from the different ones. Orlando came back and beat LeBron and the Lakers. Vaz Wagner had 37, including a game clutching 3 that had the Magic come back and beat the Lakers. So if you're the Lakers, it's gonna be one of those losses that can come back to bite you in the butt if you end up missing in that being that main draw in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Lakers are currently on a 6-game winning streak, and this was also their first home loss, which they suffered last night. I did get a chance to watch the majority of that second half of that game live via this computer screen, and Franz Wagner went off last night. On the flip side for the Lakers, I know Dalton Knecht has been on the road, especially being inserted into that starting lineup as a rookie, but when you miss a couple of free throws, you don't grab a couple of key rebounds and key situations, this is what happens. I think the Lakers will still be okay. They're 10-5 right now, but they don't land on the team we talked about before the season started, Lakina. They're one of the up and coming teams in the league, and they're doing this without Pablo Banchero, who's going to be out another few more weeks. So Franz Wagner and Jalen Suggs and the rest of those young guys who have to step in and step up. And so far, they've been doing that, and it showed last night.
Yeah, Wagner's been playing really well at the setup with Banchero being out. So, not too surprising, I guess. The Spurs beat Utah 126-118. Harrison Barnes had 25 for the Spurs, leading the way there. And we talked about this with our new buddy Alec Ausmus from ABC5. RJ Barrett had 31 points as the Raptors beat the T-Wolves, and I'm kind of wondering too. You got that the T-Wolves is probably the more disappointing teams this year. They're 8-7, so they're right kind of there in the thick of it in the play-in. But you wonder what's going on there. Like, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of consistency there with some of the shot making, and it sort of feels like Randall and Ann are still kind of meshing well. Gobert, sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. So what's going on in Minnesota?
I still believe, as you talked about, Lakina, as we did our NBA preview show almost a month ago now, that Julius Randle, his talent, his skill set is better fit for that team. But as we talked about before, it takes time for talents and personalities to mesh. As much as we want to talk about what's important on the court, which it is, we have to talk about how do they get along off the court and how can they relate to one another, what's each other's tendencies, and those things take time. But even though the pressure's on Minnesota, I'm not going to hit the panic button just yet. But my third eye, third ear is on them right now. So I'm not saying the sky is falling on it because, like Alex said in our interview last hour, that we are 15 games into the season. But if this continues on through at least Christmas, then we have a problem.
Well, yeah, the meshing part of it, that's going to be interesting to see what happens. And hopefully Chris Fish, we know he's one of the top up-and-coming coaches. So, yeah, hopefully he can figure that out. Brendan Miller did it again for Charlotte. I know Detroit fans are probably like, seriously, not again. He had another clutch shot for the Hornets as they beat Detroit again in overtime, 123-121. He had 38 points. Cutting up 27 and losing effort. Jesus, but yeah, I'm sure. Well, they don't play again for a while, so I'm sure Detroit will be happy to not have to see Charlotte for a little bit. Just go to some of the games for Wednesday because it was a full slate. The Clippers beat Orlando. Golden State no trouble with Atlanta. The Knicks, they're on a roll. They've won 4 in a row. They beat the Suns. The Suns, unfortunately, they're like 1-5 since KD's calf injury. Hopefully, he'll be back next week because they really need him.
Yeah, and as we talked about before, Lakina, with the big three with Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, those guys need to stay healthy through the majority of the season for the Phoenix Suns to have a chance. If they don't, it's going to be a long year for them.
OKC pulled away from Portland. Memphis beat Philadelphia. Good grief. I think Philadelphia should just pack it up and then just.
Paul George got injured again, and then B got called out.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
A lot of not so good things happening. Not a lot of brotherly love in the city of brotherly love right now. Houston beat Indiana. Houston, look, we talked about Houston. Houston could be I think they're third right now in the West, and they could be one of those teams where some people say could they be this year's OKC or Sacramento squad. We know that that they've got a lot of great young guys. Sengun is another young player that a lot of people don't know too much about. He had 31 points.
Bulls do.
High for him. Well. But so Houston could be one of those sleeper teams in the Western Conference. We'll see if they can keep it up. 41, of course, we talked about that earlier with the Bucks from as they beat the Bulls. The Cavs, a bounce back win. We'll talk about why it's a bounce back win in the second. 128-100 over the Pelicans.
Yeah, going to that Tuesday game, Lakina, you talked about it was the NBA Cup series. The Celtics did beat the Cavaliers by 3, 120-117. I know it's the NBA Cup, and yes, the Cavs could have packed it in after being down early, but the main guys we talked about, Lakina, that were injured last year, and Jared Allen, Darius Garland in particular, and Evan Mobley, those guys fought back hard. Donovan Mitchell hit some big baskets. I know you took an ugly collision with Jason Tatum toward the end of that game. And Donovan Mitchell ended up being okay. But for Boston, it's kind of like what we talked about with the Denver Nuggets last year. Make sure you not have any serious injuries. Keep up with the pace and make sure, not saying go through the motions, but make sure that you're executing on offense and make sure you're just playing at a consistent level. It's hard to get up for those for 82 straight games because it's such a long season. You will get tired. You got to pace yourself. And I think that's what the Boston Celtics are going through right now. As far as with Cleveland, yeah, they weren't going undefeated, folks. This is not college football, and they were going to have a loss coming up in not too distant future. But if Cleveland stays healthy, as we kept on saying throughout the last couple weeks, Lakina, if the squad is very healthy, I think they could be a surprise team as far as what they were a couple of years ago. They could be between number 3 and number 4, maybe number 5 in the East. And Kenny Atkinson, their new head coach, has done a phenomenal job.
Really has so far. And I think Boston wanted, like I said, on Monday, they wanted to send a message saying, hey, look, y'all are undefeated, blah, 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 whatever. But look, we're still a chance. We're still the Kings of the East. So they sent a message so far. So again, they do play each other again in a couple of weeks. So I'm sure Cleveland's going to want their revenge, so we'll see what happens there. Now, speaking of Mr. Dalton Knecht, he had 37 points, a career high, as the Lakers held off Utah. San Antonio beat OKC. Keldon Johnson had 22 points for the Spurs. Luka had 26 as the Mavs beat the Pelicans. The Nuggets, Jamal Murray had 27 as they beat the Grizzlies.
That was without
Brooklyn, Jokic. Yeah. So, pretty impressive win there without Jokic. And the Nets edge out the Hornets 116-115. And interesting game there in those NBA Cup games.
All right. And speaking of the NBA Cup, as we get into the schedule for this weekend, the NBA Cup group play will continue tonight. As we mentioned, the Atlanta Hawks come to town to take on the Chicago Bulls at the UC. That's at 7 o'clock. For those of you locally that want to use your antenna or luckily have one of those few cable satellite outlets, you can watch the game on CHSN. The other games that are scheduled for NBA Cup play tonight, Brooklyn will visit Philadelphia. Celtics, Boston will face the Washington Wizards, our nation's capital. The Warriors and the New Orleans Pelicans, they'll be the first game of the ESPN Friday night doubleheader at 6:30. Indiana will face Milwaukee, the rematch of last year's first round playoff series. Both teams are 6-9 right now. Portland will face Houston. Dallas at Denver. That's the second game of the ESPN Friday night doubleheader tonight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. The rest of the schedule, we'll have Sacramento at the Clippers at 9:30. And that should be a good one. I'll be tuning these eyeballs to that game.
Yeah, it's good. I'm going to be a back and forth on one for me because those last two games should be really fun, especially looking at how the courts look now. Tomorrow's games, Saturday afternoon matinee on NBA TV as they kick off a triple header there at 4 o'clock. You got the Knicks in Utah. Then you got Detroit and Orlando. And, actually, I had to get a chance to watch this one. I guess they might black it out on NBA TV. The second game of that triple header, you got Memphis and the Bulls. It'll be a back-to-back home games for the Bulls, so at least not to go on the road. Portland and Houston, Charlotte and Milwaukee, Golden State and San Antonio. That should be a good one. And on NBA TV, the last game of the triple header at 9:30, you got Denver and the Lakers. Maybe Jokic will be able to play that game, and then LeBron. That should be a fun one over at Crypto Arena.
Hey, Lakina, I think you can catch that Bulls game on replay later on NBA TV. Check your local listings.
Gotcha. Thanks for the tip.
Now for Sunday, your schedule looks like this. In the Sunday afternoon affair, Minnesota will face Boston at TD Bank North Garden. At 4 o'clock, we'll have Washington at Indiana. The rest of the schedule for Sunday looks like this. Dallas visits Miami in the rematch of the 2011 NBA Finals or 2006, whichever you should prefer. The Clippers will face Philadelphia. The Paul George revenge game, but he's injured. I don't know if he's going to play. That's ugly. The rest of the Sunday night schedule looks like this. Toronto will visit Cleveland, and the Brooklyn Nets will face the Sacramento Kings. And that's your schedule for the NBA for this weekend.
Lots of fun games coming up this weekend. Listen to KXRB'S Sports on Sports on Chicago. Keith McGee, Cindy Brown with you as we go switch gears here. Go back to the gridiron college style. As week 13 commences, and we're kind of getting to the thick of it here, Sid. Tonight you've got the Big Ten action on the Big Fox Network. You got Purdue and Michigan State. You got number 24 UNLV against San Jose State. That's going to be at 9 o'clock on FS1. Going into the games for tomorrow, the big one here, big noon Saturday game at the Horseshoe. You got Indiana and Ohio State. This will definitely be the best team Indiana has played all year. With all the hype, all the veteran players in the squad, who do you think has the edge here? Who do you think's got the edge?
I think clearly Ohio State has the edge. Will Howard has had a phenomenal year. Yeah. Like I said, the Buckeyes had the edge because Will Howard, their Buckeyes quarterback, has had a phenomenal year. 24 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Quinshawn Judkins, their running back, 8 rushing touchdowns on the year. I want to see how Indiana defends Will Howard. How many blitz packages will they have for him? Because the Hoosiers, if they could come up with, I say 3 turnovers, they'll have a great shot. But I think Ohio State is too much for them. I think Ohio State, I don't think they're going to blow them out like people think they will, but I think they'll beat Indiana by at least 17 points. I know Ohio State is favored by 11.5. Some places 11.5 as of this live broadcast.
And I find it weird that of course, Joey Galway, who was a former Ohio State wide receiver, and of course a former Seahawks wide receiver, wants Indiana to bench their quarterback. Really? I mean, I don't know what's his. Is it, look, I'm just like, wait, what?
Hot takes gone wrong.
I know. Look, Curtis Wark has been like one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten, so I think for him to say that, I think just he's a little bit much here. But I digress. But I think if Indiana wants a shot here, he can. He has 21 TDs and only 4 interceptions. You got to keep the interceptions to a minimum. And I think Ellison, their running back, they may have to go by. They may have to do the running game to kind of slow keep the Ohio State offense off the field. So we'll see what happens. I think it's gonna be a lot closer than people think. I'm not gonna say it's gonna come down to a field goal, but it's gonna. I would say take the under on the 10 point. But again, that's just me. Now Miami, they're back in action after the tough loss at Georgia Tech. They host Wake Forest at the same time on ESPN. Ole Miss, they face Florida on ABC and also streaming on ESPN Plus. SMU and Virginia in ACC action on ESPN2. Also at 11 a.m., we got number 25 Illinois against Rutgers. That's going to be on Peacock at 11 a.m. as well.
Yeah, Rutgers is favored by 1, so the Vegas has them at a pick 'em. It's going to be a tough road game for the Illini. They played well on the road this year, despite having that ugly loss at Oregon early in the season. But it's going to be close. But the Illinois, they should be able to run the football. And Altmaier, the final Illini's quarterback, he should be able to play very well on the road here. And their big wide receiver time for the Fighting Illini, Pat Bryant, 8 receiving touchdowns on the year. Expect him to have a big game as well. I think it's going to be close, but the Illinois will pull it out in the end and improve their Big Ten record to 5-3, 8-3 overall.
It's going to be a good showing there for Illinois if they were able to pull this out. Iowa and Maryland, that's going to be on BTN. UConn, they're having a nice year with Jim Mora Jr. They face the Fighting Dave Kerners, the Syracuse Orangemen. That's the ACC network at 11 a.m. North Carolina and Boston College, that's going to be on the CW network. Those of you in Chicago, you'll see that game on WGN TV. Georgia, they host UMass. No, Marcus Camby doesn't have any football eligibility left, folks. Sorry. Tennessee hoping to bounce back from their loss to Georgia. They face UTEP. I know it's weird that they schedule these kind of games near the end of the season, but that's just how it is. Unfortunately, Arizona and TCU is on ESPN Plus at 2:00 as we go into the afternoon games. Let me go down here. Kentucky and Texas, that's at 2:30 on ABC. It'll be interesting to see if Texas can kind of keep up, and maybe Kentucky may have a shot. We'll see. We talked about this with our buddy Alec Ausmus earlier. Penn State and Minnesota on CBS at 2:30. I mean, look, that place is going to be rocking over there at Huntington Bank Stadium. So, I mean, that's going to be interesting. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that they'll win it, but it should be an interesting game nonetheless, I feel like.
Well, I think Minnesota will keep it close for a while. Darius Taylor is going to have a monster game for the Minnesota Golden Gophers for them to even have a shot. But Penn State is just too tough, and I think they'll pull away in the second half. So I have Penn State winning this one. Penn State, as of this live broadcast, is favored by 11.5.
Okay, interesting. The point, not that you said that, the point that I'm talking about. A big one here in the Big 12. This could be for a spot in the conference championship game. We got BYU and Arizona State at 2:30 on ESPN. BYU home to bounce back from the loss to Kansas, and Arizona State. Look, they may have an outside shot at the playoff. Again, a lot of things have to happen, but this should be a really good game down there in Tempe.
Yeah, Jordan Tyson, the Arizona State's star wide receiver, 9 receiving touchdowns on the year. Expect him to have a big game. And that star running back, Ken Skatable, 11 rushing touchdowns on the year, over 1,000 yards. So Arizona State, if they want to pull out the upset, well, it's not an upset. They're favored by 3 points at home. But if they want to beat BYU, they're going to have to run the football. BYU, as you mentioned, ugly loss last week against Kansas. They're looking forward to having a bounce back game. I think it's going to be a closer game than what people expect.
Should be a good one. Speaking of Kansas, they host Colorado at 2:30 on Fox. And
let's go Prime! Let's go Prime!
I mean, look, Kansas. Look, they've been playing spoilers for a lot of teams. They gave Iowa State their second loss, kind of knocking them out of the Big 12 title game. You saw what Kansas did to BYU in Provo. That's not an easy place to play. The fact that they were able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're on a spoiler tour, I guess, if you see. So it should be very interesting. Look, I'm sure that place is going to be packed up there at GEHA Field down there over there in Lawrence, I should say.
Yeah, well, this game is going to be in Kansas City, Missouri. So
okay, so
it's going to be at it's going to be at Arrowhead. So it's going to be it's going to be a close game. Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, they went through this test last week at Texas Tech, down 13 points early, but they came back and won. That was 2 weeks ago, I should say. Of course, they struggled. They struggled early last week at Utah at home, but did have a quote-unquote dominant performance, even though they still have some things to improve on. Talking about Colorado, but it's going to be a closer game. It's at a quote-unquote neutral site game. I think Colorado is favored by 3. I think they will win this game by 3. It's going to be tough, but they'll play hard for Coach Prime. The defense is a whole lot better thanks to Warren Sapp and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, who declared his eligibility for the NFL draft, by the way. So I think those two will have another monster game. So it's going to be close, but I think Colorado will pull it out.
Okay, but let's remember though. I mean, Jalen, not Jaden Daniels for Kansas. He's been playing a lot better lately, so we'll see what happens there. And Dylan Neal, their running back, he has 12 touchdowns already, and I think he was I think one of the colleges he picked was going to pick was for Coach Prime down there when he was down there at Jackson State before he ended up going to Kansas. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot of revenge on his mind. So should be a good one over there at Arrowhead. I forgot they were playing in a neutral field. Go figure. This is Dawn and Clemson. That's going to be on the CW Network. Northwestern and Michigan on the FS1. Wisconsin and Nebraska, Cal and Stanford. That's going to be on the ACC Network. Texas Tech and OK State. That's going to be that should be a fun one there on ESPN Plus. Going into the primetime matchup real quick. Let's see here. Lots of oh, you know what? Let's bring our girl out here because she's out right now. But it's gonna be at Yankee Stadium, and it's gonna be on ABC and Peacock at 6. You got Army and Notre Dame. Now, I know that Army has not played a tough schedule. I know Notre Dame, they've had a lot of injuries, so I think Army may have a shot. I said they might. I didn't say they're going to win, but I think they might have a shot against Notre Dame tomorrow.
Well, Vegas has the Fighting Irish favored by 14 points on a neutral site game. Notre Dame, as we talked about all season, has bounced back nicely after that shocking upset loss to Northern Illinois. Army, like you said, Lakina, I'm sure they'll use the "we gets no respect" Rodney Dangerfield type of tactic. I think that's going to work, but I think it's going to be a physical, close game between these two teams. Is it, like you mentioned, it's at a neutral site game at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx, but Notre Dame is, especially their star quarterback Riley Leonard, is going to play much better. I know 12 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, but I feel like he needs to have a big game, and I think it's going to come down to a field goal. So whoever has the least amount of turnovers is going to win this game.
CBS Sports Network, you got Ashton Jeanty and his the Boise State Broncos at Wyoming. They're playing Laramie. Wazoo at Oregon State. Wazoo home to bounce back from last week's loss. That's going to be on the CW at 6. One of the marquee games on ABC. You've got Alabama and Oklahoma. We just see how Oklahoma plays. Texas A&M and Auburn at 6:30 on ESPN. Yeah, Iowa State hoping to bounce back. They did that nice bounce back win. They a lot has happened though in the front of them, but they face Utah on the Big Fox Network. Let's see here, Cincinnati and K-State. That's gonna be on ESPN2. I love this rivalry, no matter how the records are and such. USC and UCLA. I love when these two teams play. I'm glad we're able to keep that rivalry. It's going to be on NBC at 9:30. So it'll be a night. So no NBC 5 Chicago news that time, but should be a good one.
And no SNL either.
Sorry, folks, but yeah, it's going to be at the Rose Bowl with anyone matchup there. So, but it should be a fun matchup nonetheless.
All right, so there's your preview for this weekend. College football. Lakia, we have to break for one last time. When we return, we'll have our girl, Miss Christine, the Queen Manika, with our Week 12 NFL picks. We'll discuss that. We'll discuss an off-season party for the White Sox and their fans, and a whole lot more. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You're listening to the Hashtag Football Friday edition right here, live in 11 color on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports and the Hashtag Football Friday edition. You're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina with her head down while she's getting herself together. You can follow yours truly. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG SCK80. Once again, it's SIDKID. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
My bad, Mom was texting you. You follow Makina McKee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
And let's not waste this. Our last segment of the show for today and for the week. So, if you have any last minute questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Look in, we'll get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get our girl, your girl, our weekend girl, Miss Christine, the Queen Man from KXRB. What's up, Christine?
Hey!
Hello, how are you?
We're doing
great. How about you?
How about you?
Good. We're doing better than last week.
Yeah, before we
I
get
was like, you sound better.
before we get to our NFL picks up, do you have any nerves about tomorrow's Navy Notre Dame contest from Yankee Stadium?
Army Notre Dame.
Army, sorry, Army.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, so you're that confident? Okay,
No.
okay. Okay. Like I said in our last segment, Vegas has the Irish favorite by 14. You expect Notre Dame to dominate, correct?
I expect them to win, dominate. It's going to be a good game. This game's always historic in the program, so it's always fun to watch.
Yeah, it's always entertaining to win the Army. I'm sure Army's going to feel disrespected since everybody's picking Notre Dame to win be a pretty handle. So we'll see how they respond. Now, real quick before we get to our picks, the Snow Bowl, I guess if you want to call it that, the Steelers and the Browns last night, and of course the Browns were able to pull off the mild upset. Now, Jameis Winston, the philosopher, I guess, he led the way there. And snowballs and all that stuff. But yeah, the Steelers, like I've been saying, the Steelers are kind of one of those teams where I just don't know what to think about them. I know they've beaten Baltimore, but it just feels like that offense is really going to be the deterrent here. But what do you guys think?
You never know what team you're going to get with the Steelers, I feel like. Even though their defense is one of the best in the league, they really don't put up that much in points, which is what the common theme has been with them in recent years. And it's just one of those years where you don't know what to expect from the Steelers, I feel like.
Yeah, the Steelers are in contention only because of their defense and their running game that's been going on track for the last couple of weeks. But Cleveland, on the flip side, ever since Deshaun Watson had that season-ending injury, Cleveland, with the exception of last week, they've been playing a whole lot better. I know Nick Chubb returned from that ugly injury that he suffered last year, and I know Myles Garrett had a sack last night. But Cleveland, don't be surprised if they have a surprise finish here. I'm not saying they're going to the playoffs or anything like that, but don't be surprised if they have a strong finish here. I think some of those Browns fans want them to get the number one pick, but you may be disappointed. I don't know.
Should be interesting. It's going to be definitely interesting finish with those four. Maybe Kevin Stefanski can probably save his job. We'll see about all of that. Now, going to our picks. Well, first, Falcons, Bills, fresh off that win over the Kansas Chiefs, so it might be a good time for them for the bye. Bengals, Jags, Saints, and Jets. They definitely need it as going on there. They're all on bye. They're all on bye this week, so they'll adjust your fantasy teams accordingly. And as for the picks themselves, I have 100, so I'm leading the way there. Christine has 98, so you're 2 games behind me, Christine. And you're 4 games behind me, Sid, and 2 games behind her. You're at 96. So, 4 games stretch between the three of us. So, still very close. So, let's get going here with these picks. Let's see. I'll make sure I got the order right here. Okay. We don't have to spend too much on this game unless you guys want to. Chiefs and Panthers. Sid, you want to start off or keep it short and sweet?
Oh, Chiefs. And then they might have a slow start because they're playing down to the competition, but the Chiefs should be able to win this one. They're currently favored by 10.5 points on the road. And plus, Isaiah Pacheco is supposed to return.
Yeah. Chiefs shouldn't have any problems with this one. Going with the Chiefs.
Same here. Like I said, they should be able. Like I said, Pacheco's coming back, so they should help them out a little bit. So, okay, well, that was quick. Another good one that we didn't have to spend too much time up on. The Texans and as they host the Titans in the AFC South matchup. Christine,
it's pretty easy for me too. This one, the Texans.
Houston, currently favored by 8.5 points at home.
8.5. Okay. I also have Houston. I know some people say they may have a little bit of kind of a maybe a hangover from that Dallas game dominating them, but they should be fine. I mean, this is actually a perfect time for them. So yeah, I'm picking Houston as well. Let's see here. You got the Lions and the Colts, an intriguing game here. I know Anthony Richardson. I know he had they had a great game in their win last week. It's the Jets, but still. And I kind of feel like, they might be playing well. Now, the Lions, they're going to be ready for them as well. I'm sure they're not going to be looking ahead to that Bears coming up on next Thursday. So I don't think they're going to worry too much about that. The Colts will keep it close, but I think Detroit will pull it out in the end.
I definitely think Detroit would get the win with this one. Regardless how Anthony Richardson played last week, the Lions are the team to beat, in my opinion, this year.
I'm going with my head. I'm going with the Lions, but I think the Colts will keep it close Detroit is currently favored by 7 on the road.
Aha. So maybe Vegas knows something there. They're only getting 7. All right. You got the Patriots and the Dolphins in the AFC East. Now the Dolphins are playing pretty well. I don't know if they're gonna make the playoffs, but they can make things interesting. Sid, you start this one.
This is a classic AFC East divisional game. You mentioned the Dolphins are playing very well there at 4-6. The Patriots are playing very well too, even though they did lose a close one to the Los Angeles Rams last week at home. We all know what the Patriots did to the Bears here in Chicago 2 weeks ago. But Tua Tagovailoa, as long as he stays upright, the Dolphins always has to have a chance, and they have a better running game, and they have a better overall talent on paper than the Patriots. So it's going to come down to a field goal. I expect the Dolphins to win. Miami is currently favored by 7.5 points.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there, Sid. As long as Tua can stay healthy and stay upright and the O-line can protect him, it should be a pretty good game for the Dolphins. So I'm picking Miami.
Yeah, I'm picking Miami too. Like I said, it's going to be close, but I think they should be okay. This is our buddy Spiro Diaz will have this game, the call of this game on Fox, on CBS, I should say. So yeah, I think Miami should be able to get a nice win here against them, the Pats. I mean, all right, you got the Bucks and the Giants. No more Daniel Jones. You got Tommy DeVito. You know, Joe's been released. Says bye-bye. It is $100 million contract that he signed. Christine, you start this one.
I feel so bad for Daniel Jones. He seems like such a nice guy. In his press conference yesterday was basically one of the saddest speeches I've ever heard in the NFL, especially in the middle of the season like that too. So I feel bad for him. But I do think the Bucks should get this win pretty easily over the Giants this weekend. So I'm going with the Bucks.
The New York Giants will play better. Tommy DeVito, the former Illini quarterback, he was a star for a hot minute last year for the Giants. This is his team, at least for the foreseeable future. The Giants will play well, but I don't like making this pick, but I'm playing it safe here just for now. I'm going with the Buccaneers, but I think this is going to be a close game throughout. Tampa Bay is currently favored by 6.
Yeah, Tampa's coming off a bye, so I'm thinking that maybe heal up a little bit. I think the Bucks should be able to pull this out. DeVito still, he had his moments, had his flashes last year, but I just think that Tampa, they need this win to stay within striking distance of the NFC South. So we'll see if they can keep it up. But yeah, I think this will be a close one, but I think they'll pull away late. Talk about Tampa. All right, NFC East matchup here. You got the Cowboys and the Commanders, and what can you say about the Cowboys at this point? The Commanders, I can't at this point with the Cowboys, and they just are not very good at all. And I think for confidence wise and for morale wise, I think Washington needs this win more than the Cowboys do. So I'm picking Washington.
This was a hard pick for me. I almost went with the Cowboys, and I almost did, but then I'm like, I just don't think it's there right now, even though I really do think Micah Parsons could do some damage with the Commanders' offense. So that's part of my lean towards it, but I am going to go with the Commanders, but it won't be by a lot. I think this is going to be a close game just because of the defense for Dallas.
Washington is favored by 10.5 points at home. I'm with you, Christine. I think Dallas covers for entertainment purposes only, but I think Washington will come out with the victory, especially after the way they lost last Thursday night at Philadelphia.
All right, we already at the 3 o'clock games, folks. So yeah, we got a kind of light schedule this week. Broncos and the Raiders. Sid, you start this one.
Can we start out with Christine, because her husband's team is 6-5 right now.
I know.
Yeah, sure.
Well, it's the Broncos. I mean, the Raiders are just kind of doing their own thing right now, and they really don't know what's going on, I feel like. So, Broncos.
With that being said, the Broncos have traditionally struggled at the Raiders over the last few years. They're favored by 6 points. We saw what they did, talking about with them. You saw what they did last week against Atlanta, as we told you on this program they would do. I'm going to stay on that Broncos bandwagon, Christine. So tell your husband, Chris, that I'm staying on the Broncos bandwagon for at least one more week. So I'm picking Denver.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I think look, Bo Nix has been playing very good. The defense has been very solid too. I think the Raiders are just kind of having a lot of growing pains. I don't know if Antonio Pierce is gonna be gone by the end of the year, but yeah, Broncos, pretty should be pretty easily. But again, we'll see how weird, when things happen over there in Vegas. One of the big games of the week here as the 49ers go to Lambeau Field against the Packers, and guys are banged up. Purdy's having an injury right now, and of course the Packers didn't play their best game against the Bears, but they ended up pulling it out thanks to a blocked field goal. Jesus, oh my gosh. I mean, the 49ers are 5-5. I don't think anybody had that to be the case there when they played this game, but I might regret this later. I'm picking San Francisco, but it could be one of those ugly games. So it could be one of those like 10-9 type of deals. So I'm picking San Francisco. I don't know why, but I feel like, this is going to be interesting. This should be an interesting game. Maybe. I don't know.
I'm going with the Packers just because it's a home game for them, and we know how Lambeau Field gets this time of the year. It's that lovely Midwestern winter, which I don't think the 49ers are fully adapt to just yet this season. So that's my reasoning towards it. The Packers did not have a good showing against the Bears last week. They just got lucky, my opinion. So I'm going with the Packers for this one, considering they want to show everyone that win was justified last week.
George Kittle, the 49ers tight end, is injured. He should be available to play. I think Brock Purdy will play in this one as well. I'm going with the 49ers here. We said this before last week's loss to the Seattle Seahawks that the 49ers were starting to make their move. They were getting guys back healthy. Christian McCaffrey has been back for the last couple of weeks. Hopefully they'll get a very, very heavy dose of Christian McCaffrey. If so, the 49ers will come out with a victory. Green Bay's favored by 3, but I'm going with the 49ers.
All right. I'll have my eye on this game too. This is the other 325 game for Fox. You got the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Sid, you start this one.
Arizona is favored by 1 point on the road, so Vegas has them at the pick 'em. We talked about the Cardinals for the last few weeks, Lakina. They starting to turn things around. Seattle with a great upset win at San Francisco on the road last week. The Cardinals in recent years has had trouble playing Seattle at Lumen Field, or as I'll call it, Quest Field in Seattle, or the Link if you really want to go back that far. But it's another close divisional game. I expect this game to be physical, only because they're the home team. I'm going with Seattle.
I think the Cardinals have something. I don't know what it is, but it is something that keeps them to keep going. And with the Seahawks, you really don't know what to expect with them this year. So on the road, I'm going with the Cardinals. I might regret it, but I've been screwed over before where I haven't picked the Cardinals. So this is the time to do it.
Well, I feel the same way you do, Christine. I mean, I don't know what to think about this the Seattle squad. I mean, they were able to, they said run by Geno Smith that sealed that win against San Fran. I think Arizona's going to be coming off a bye, so they'll be nice and well rested. So I'm picking Arizona. It'll be a close one. I'm picking Arizona. Like you said, Christine, I might regret it later too. I'm right there with you, but we'll see. It should be interesting. It could be a great game over there in Seattle. The Sunday night game, you got the Eagles and the Rams. Christine.
Eagles, I think if Saquon Barkley has another monster game, the Rams defense isn't really going to be able to stop him. And they've just been playing really well overall. The Rams have been looking pretty okay too, but with Saquon Barkley on the Eagles, it's going to be tough to stop him. So I'm going with the Eagles.
Did you like his backwards hurdle a couple weeks ago against Jacksonville?
Yeah, he's like he didn't break his butt,
I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles too. They had a big win on the road last week. A big home victory last week against Washington to take the lead in the NFC East Division. The Rams, as we talked about, they got a big win on the road. They had to hang on, but they had a big win on the road at New England last week against a sub 500 team. You would think that this would be the Rams' time to finally take off in that mediocre NFC West division, but the Eagles are too much here. They're favored by 3. The Eagles are the play here, so I'm going with Philadelphia.
Going to Philadelphia too. I think the Rams, their defense is very young, but they haven't really faced the Saquon Barkley kind of kind of player. So yeah, that's gonna be the big test for them. So I think Philadelphia, it'll be close, but I think Philadelphia because of that great Saquon Barkley. I'm sure we'll get a couple of long runs out of him, and that'll help them pull away late. Now it's the Hardball on Monday night. It'll be ESPN, ABC, of course. You got the Manning cast, so it's gonna be everywhere, of course. John versus Jim. You got the 7-4 Ravens versus 7-3 Chargers. I know Baltimore, I'm sure they were rubbing their hands after their Steelers lost to Cleveland last night. The Chargers have been playing very well too. God, I'm sure this is the ones that are pick them, so I don't know who to pick. This is a toss-up game for me. I might regret this. Excuse me, I might regret this later. Baltimore has let me down too much all year, so I'm picking the Chargers just because they're the home team. So I'm picking the Chargers.
I love that the Hardballs are back together on the field, going, battling it out like it was all those years ago. And I think Jim Harbaugh's got this with the Chargers. It doesn't seem now. Derrick Henry has been playing remarkably for the Ravens, and he has been a real key asset in their offense. So I think right now the Chargers, their main goal is to stop Derrick Henry at all costs. And if Khalil Mack is back on the field, he's going to be the guy to do that, I feel like. So I'm going with the Chargers. It's going to be a good game. I think they're going to keep it really close, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers win it. So I'm going with the Chargers, but I put a question mark on it. So it could go either way.
I'll answer that question mark for you, Christine. The Chargers had to hang on for dear life last week against Cincinnati. Baltimore, as Lakina said, they're rubbing their hands together because they had an embarrassing showing last week at Pittsburgh, as I told you on this program last week. But with that being said, I'm picking Baltimore for this one. And this is the time of year they start to take out. John Harbaugh is going to have the Ravens refocus. Expect a lot of Derrick Henry against that Chargers defense. I think he's going to have a good game. The statistics may not show it, but his impact is going to have a lot to say about that Baltimore Ravens offense. Lamar Jackson, I think next to Pittsburgh, this is going to be the toughest defense he's faced all year. So it's going to be a physical game, physical. But I think Baltimore is going to make a couple of big plays down the stretch. So I'm going with Baltimore, and they're currently favored by 3 points on the road.
Interesting. All right. Last but not least, of course, over at Soldier Field, you got one of the oldest rivalries. You got the Bears hosting Minnesota. It'll be interesting to see how this new Thomas Brown offense. Now they haven't had a full week to prepare. I'm going to check to see if there's like any injury updates as I look at that. Sid, you start this one here.
Bears are 4-6. They're heading down the slide, down the slip and slide down the wrong direction. They're 4-2 at home. Minnesota, they bounced back last week with a tough win on the road against the Tennessee Titans. As Lakina said, there's film on that Thomas Brown offensive coordinator from the new offensive coordinator for the Bears. There's film on him now. So the Vikings are their top 5 defense statistically in the league. Brian Flores, their DC, is going to have all kinds of blitz packages for Caleb Williams. But I think because the Minnesota Vikings cannot stop the run, I think this is one of the reasons why the Bears will keep this game close. But I think at the end, the Bears are going to bear. So I'm going with Minnesota. They're currently favored by 3.5 points on the road.
Am I going next? Because I really don't want
Yes.
to. I haven't really picked yet because you don't know what team you're gonna get with Minnesota. They've been great this year. Don't get me wrong, but lately it's kind of like a mystery cookie or like a mystery piece of candy. You don't know what flavor you're gonna get until the game is going on. And with the Bears, obviously, it was heartbreaking. My dad was here, and he's like, I think I would rather have this happen than them lose by 20 points. And I said, no, this is worse because they gave us that hope, and because of poor time management from Eberflus, we lost that game. Like honestly, if it wasn't for poor time management and not even going for it to try to get closer for a field goal, it's a lot of bad coaching decisions. So it's worse to see that happen as opposed to, oh, they're losing by 20 points. Yeah, they're going to lose this game. So it's a big toss up for me. Gosh, they can't. I don't think the defense can stop Hawkinson or Jefferson. They can stop Sam Darnold. I think Montez Sweat can take a couple of cracks at him for sure. But when it comes to Jefferson being one of the top receivers in the league, that's a tough one. Geez, I don't know. This is a live pick.
Oh yeah, well look, I'm looking. I got the injury report right here. DeAndre Swift is questionable. So is Keenan Allen. Bates is out, and so is Hicks. So that's a big loss for that.
Once you said DeAndre Swift could be injured, then it's the Vikings then, because that's pretty much one of the only bright spots right now for the Bears is DeAndre Swift, I feel like, for the season. And I think it's going to be a good game, but it's, just because you said that, it's the Vikings, but I have 3 ellipses dots and a question mark.
He did participate fully, but he is still feeling discomfort from that groin injury, so he is questionable. Like I said, Bates is going to be out. Look, I think, like you guys said, there is now a film of that Thomas Brown's offense. I think Brian Flores is going to blitz them like crazy. And we're going to see how Caleb, deals with that. He didn't really have to deal with a lot of blitzing when he was at USC. They'll keep it close like the Bears will, but I think I'm picking Minnesota just because that there's just a better team right now. And I know people want to say that, it's because they're another road game. I think they want to go, back home for the Thanksgiving week and, be on a high with 9 wins. So I'm picking, look, it's not going to be a blowout, but I think Minnesota does win it and they hang on because something weird always happens.
Mm-hmm.
In the weather report as of now, it'll be cloudy and 47 degrees on Sunday.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So not bad.
Perfect.
So it won't be precipitation, so that won't be a problem. So so the weather is gonna be just fine. Those are our picks for week 12 in the NFL.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago on the #Football Friday edition. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. It's Christine. Guys, we have a couple of minutes left, and the Chicago White Sox will be throwing an off-season party for their fans. Finally, yay! For the first time, I believe, since 2018 or 2019, Sox Fest will be returning, but it's not going to be at a downtown fancy hotel. It will be located in the Bridgeport neighborhood at the Ramova Theater. I'm just reading the press release here. The Chicago White Sox announced Sox Fest Live, a reimagined fan-focused event featuring a mix of entertainment and exclusive conversations with White Sox players, front office staff, and franchise greats. Live on stage, it will be held from 5 to 9 p.m. on Friday, January 24th, and Saturday, January 25th at historic Ramova Theater in Chicago's Bridgeport neighborhood. Of course, as you said, Christine, we talked about this last year with rumors have it of Sox Fest returning because it'll be the 125th anniversary of the franchise next year and the 20th anniversary of that great 05 World Series team. We'll expect to see a lot of 05 White Sox players from that championship team appearing there. We know Ozzy's going to be there, but some of the other players have not been officially announced yet, but I can probably guess who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. So it should be a fun time. So the White Sox, as of right now, they got it right. And tickets will go on sale next week.
Yeah, my thought is it's probably going to be Konerko. That's one of the players that probably has to be there. Scotty Pasednik. I would also think maybe Jim Thome would be there.
He wasn't part of that 05 team, but
no, but I would think he would be there. Jermaine Dye, I would think that he would be there. One of my favorite players of the White Sox ever. So those are probably the ones that you can expect to see. That would be my first thought.
Yeah,
hopefully Frank Thomas would be there.
Yeah,
right. That would be great too, Frank Thomas.
Yeah, I think AJ Przinsky, I think he'll be there too, I'm sure. And like it'd be interesting, I'm sure it's gonna be celebrations, starting next, maybe with this, having like pretty much the whole season with the 20th anniversary of the 05 World Series team. So, this is kind of like, we kind of expect that. So I'm sure there's gonna be more stuff planning. for this. So I think this is just a start. So I'm not surprised they brought it back, for next year because that anniversary is coming up. So it'll be just see how I'm sure it's gonna be more of this kind of celebrations throughout next season.
Yeah, also too, they're gonna have a kids clinic there, and they're gonna have a panel for fans to ask questions. And new manager Will Venable is gonna be there. Yes, so assuming that and I'm gonna put this out there right now, even though this is a week before Thanksgiving. Assuming that Comcast and Xfinity have their stuff together, those questions will not be asked. But if they don't have that stuff together by January 25th, like you said, Christine, that answering question session is going to get ugly.
Oh, you know that they're going to vet those questions beforehand. They're not just going to let everybody come up.
Exactly. We know that that's not going to. We know they're going to actually let everybody.
They're not going to let that happen. Yeah.
No.
But White Sox fans are not stupid, but someone's going to slip it in there somehow.
Right. All right, now of course we're into the time of year where you got the Pro Football Hall of Fame for next year. The modern day finalists has been is down to 25. Some of the notable names: you got Anquan Bolden, you got Antonio Gates, James Harrison, Rodney Harrison, Torrey Holt, Luke Keeley, Eli Manning, Fred Taylor, Terrell Suggs, Steve Smith Sr., Earl Thomas, Hines Ward, and Adam Vinatieri. Those are all the names, but there's some of the names that are being floated out there. They're listed down to 25. They're going to have it down to, I think, like by December, they're going to have it down to like 12 or 13 before the final. So the finalists will be set right before the Super Bowl. So anybody, we talked about this list on our group chat. So anybody is worthy? Do you think? You kind of make a case for most of these guys for the most part. So what are like your top 4 or 5 guys, real quick?
Eli would definitely be up there. Luke Kuechly, I haven't heard that name in gosh knows how long. He was a stud player, so I would think that he would be up there. Harrison, both of them. I feel like those are also good picks. I think overall it's a good list.
I don't see any former Chicago Bear players on that list, in particular Jay Hildenberg, but that's a whole other issue. But as far as the list that you read off, Lakina, Torrey Holt from the St. Louis Rams days, he should be in there. I think Antonio Gates, this will be the year that he'll get in. So Eli Manning, even though he was a 500 quarterback, his career record as a quarterback at 500 because of his name, but most importantly because of the 2 Super Bowls he won, beating Brady head to head. That's what's going to put him in the Hall of Fame. So I expect Eli Manning to head up this class of being put in the Hall of Fame. If he doesn't get in this go around, I think this is his first year of eligibility, right, Lakina?
Yep.
Yeah. So if he doesn't get in this year, something's wrong. But he's going to get in.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think all say about I'm sure if he does get you guys gonna making a lot of jokes about that. He does. He has a great sense of humor. So Fred Taylor, I think, is a guy that I didn't. I would thought maybe he'd be in there already, but again, we'll see what happens. But gonna be interesting to see how they narrow this list down in like a few weeks. So we'll see there. Now the NBA's I forgot to ask Alec this. How does he feel? How does he feel about this? But the NBA All-Star Game is another little tune-up here. It'll be a 4-team thing. I guess they're gonna go by. I think they're gonna have like a round by round. I think it's gonna be like to 25. I think it's gonna be like the championship's gonna be up to 50. Can we just go back to East versus West? Do we have to do all this really, people?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Come on.
Too complicated.
They're doing it like what they do with the hockey, the NHL All-Star Game. You have the Central Division versus the Atlantic Division for the first period. Then you have the Pacific Division versus the Midwest Division. Then the winner of those first 2 periods to get to battle each other in the third period. Stop.
Too much.
Stop.
It's not that.
Lakina, they ruined our childhood because the All-Star Game used to mean something. The last great All-Star Game was here in Chicago back in 2020. After that, it's been messed up for the last 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, but that was working with the pandemic too. So
exactly.
Go figure with all of that. Jesus. Of course, we also our thoughts and prayers to former Bulls, as we came to hear Bob Love, who passed away from cancer, 82 years old. Just a really great guy. Overcame a lot, especially stutter. He became an ambassador for the Bulls. Those 70s Bulls teams, they were in the Western Conference. Don't ask. That's how it was back then. Of course, they had to deal with the likes of Kareem and Big O and the Bucks. And yes, they were the Western Conference too. And of course, you also had
Will Chamberlain and Jerry West.
Yep. Yeah, over with the Lakers, of course, Golden State with Rick Barry and that group. So they had their shots, but yeah, they said too many teams in front of them. But a great guy, and rest in peace to Mr. Bob Love. I've heard of interviews. He actually did an interview right before he got real sick, and it was just a really a good man. Everybody we know that dealt with him, those great Bulls teams back in the 70s, and a lot of those guys are no longer with us. So they're reunited up in heaven.
Yeah, Bob Love was actually one of the first athletes I ever met growing up. That was my first professional athlete I met. He came to my grade school. At the time, it was Mater Christi. It's closed now, but he came by when I was in kindergarten, and so I was like 6 years old when I met him, and he signed my shirt and whatnot. And yeah, great guy and a great motivational speaker too. I loved meeting him as a kid.
Do you still have that shirt?
I probably do. Is the signature on it? I don't know.
Speaking of the NBA, of course, inside the NBA, we worried about their future. Of course, this is Turner Sports last year covering the NBA. Now inside the NBA will have a new home thanks to ESPN starting next year.
And for those of you who are worried about, Stephen A. and Kendrick, no, it's going to be produced in Atlanta. They're subsidizing a lot of their programming, so of course NBA TV will still be a thing. And unfortunately, apparently, Shaq didn't get the memo. I guess like, wait a minute, I haven't gotten a renewed contract yet, so I'm sure they're going to work on all that. But so good news there for inside the NBA. That this is great news.
Thoughts, Christine?
Yeah, no, it's great. They were all doing their swan songs, and it's like, just kidding, we're staying.
Right.
Speaking of, real couple of quick notes from ESPN. I know we got to close up shop and get up out of here. Hubie Brown, former head NBA coach. He's been an analyst, television analyst for a long time. He's going to have his swan song with 91 years young. We don't know when his last broadcast is going to be, but shout out to him, a great legend, a great ambassador for the game of basketball. Lakina, you and I grew up in Chicago. We remember him when he started with CBS after he got fired with the Knicks following the 87 season during those Bulls-Pistons games. And, of course, he reunited with Dick Stockton in the late 90s and the early 2000s on TNT. And, of course, he went to ESPN in the mid-2000s after his coaching stay with the Memphis Grizzlies. So, Hubie Brown, 91 years young, a great ambassador for the game of basketball.
Still, it's still very sharp too. I mean, for 91, I mean, still has that quick wit about him, and I mean, he's definitely gonna be missed. But I can understand like he wants to kind of like retire, and still, while he's still like young enough, and still has the quickness and the wit and the sharpness that he still does have.
Yeah, and a couple other nuggets in the NFL. Thursday Night Football will get its first flex game in Week 16. Christine, listen up, and you can tell Chris about this. The Denver Broncos will face the as we call them, the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles on this show. So for Week 16 on Thursday Night Football, the Denver Broncos in the Los Angeles Chargers will be your featured Thursday night game in Week 16. And of course, Jason Kelce, the brother of Travis Kelce, who recently retired, he's working on ESPN on Monday Night Countdown this year. He's going to have his own late night show sometime during the offseason next year on ESPN. Well, we'll see how this shapes out.
Well, Kelsey's all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And around the horn, of course, I guess it's been announced, or it's been leaked, I guess, by Awful announcing that they'll be ending their show sometime next year, right before the start of the next NFL season. It's tough because, I mean, that show's been a staple for a long time, and let me just see what they're gonna do in its slot. I mean, do you have PTI at a whole hour PTI? Will there be another show that'll precede them? Will it be a sports center? I don't know what's gonna happen in that slot. That 5-4 Central Time slot in the afternoons for ESPN.
Yeah, do you really need? And I like this show. I think Around the Horn started, I believe, a year later than PTI. Yep. But I like PTI. But do you really need an hour of them? I love them, but do you really need an hour of them? I don't think so. That's just me. Christine, thoughts?
Yeah. Same. What you guys are. It's changing. Media is always changing for sports, so you just kind of gotta go with it and see what happens.
All right. Anything else, guys, before we disperse? No, we got to get the hell up out of here.
I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter, Executes again on IG.
You can follow yours, Shirley Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Christine, where can lovely people follow you on social media?
They can follow me at @CManika_KXRB on Twitter.
All right. So you can catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more time, you can catch Second City Sports every Monday and Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
Don't forget, you can download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. But please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are located on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're ready, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we'd like to thank Alec Ausmus from ABC5, KSTP's sports anchor and reporter from Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was kind enough with the time to join us today to preview Vikings and Bears and other Twin Cities sports conversation as well.
So much fun with him. We're definitely going to have him back on. So
yes, we will.
So enjoy all the sports this weekend, everybody. Stay warm. I know it's going to get a little bit cold in some spots. But yeah, enjoy all the college football, college hoops, NBA, NFL, and so much more. And congrats to all the MLB award winners, Aaron Judge and Shohei, both unanimous MVPs, which I don't think that should be a shocker to any of us. So enjoy all the sports and be warm out there and be safe and be good to each other. For Sid and Christine, I'm the Kansas City Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We'll see you guys next week.
Stop, Bears. Holla!